we basically know exactly what Michigan's defense is going to be this upcoming season. While there might be some differences, we still know that it is going to have essentially the same look, but the same can't be said necessarily of the offense in terms of at least who those players are going to be. So we are going to get into my projected two deep for Michigan, the Michigan football offense here in spring ball. This episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Friday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. You'll have to bear with some miscues here and there. I was not your man on the ground yesterday for the press conference. My back completely is locked up. And so it has been a challenge for the last few days to kind of at least be able to be mobile and move around and all that stuff. So bear with me if I stumble. I know I stumble a lot anyway, but just asking for your forgiveness immediately. Nonetheless, let's get into, we'll spend the entire episode going over what I have as the Michigan offense two deep as it currently stands. There are some educated guesses in here, but it's not necessarily written in stone. Obviously, things can change even between now and next Saturday when the spring game is. And things can change between today and Monday, right? Like that's why you have this. So let's start with the offensive line. We'll spend segment one on the offensive line. Then we'll go skills positions. Then we're going to talk quarterback. So let's start with the offensive line. Definitely the starter at left tackle is Miles Hinton. That is not a guess. That is just obvious things are obvious. So he has been raved about all off season, all through spring. He's notably slimmed down when we saw him, and he said like that he wanted to play at a place where he could play fast but still have enough bulk to move people. Kind of reminds you of Trevor Keegan, although Trevor Keegan bulked back up, which is kind of the funny thing. But Miles is still able to move people at his size. Obviously, he's a guy who's been just kind of coming along here, and his former 5-star. But I think the big question is how does he crave football the way some of these other guys have? Because I think it's really cool, and I'm certainly a well-rounded individual in terms of my interests. He's more so. Not more so, but he did not grow up a football fan, despite being in a football family. Very interested in art and fishing, and it kind of seems like a little bit of not necessarily a dilettante, but certainly a Renaissance man in a lot of ways. So how does that affect him having that kind of edge? I don't know. If hopefully he finds it. As far as his backup was concerned, I put it at Jeff Percy right now. Jeff Percy started a left tackle for one game in 2022. It's a guy who has been a victim of being behind a lot of really good guys to some degree. Granted, they brought in transfers last year, and we didn't necessarily didn't crack that. But Jeff Percy is a guy that I have my eye on for that backup side on the left personally. Left guard. Again, this is not a guess. This is Josh Preeb, the Northwestern transfer. That's where he's been repping, is left. I would have penciled him in at right, but it seems like they like him at left. So he is entrenched there. He's a lot of reports have him as being the best offensive lineman at this juncture. So that is not was not necessarily a bad thing. I think that just speaks to how good he was on an emerging team and actually a bad team at some point. As far as the backup right now, I have Nathan Afobe. I know he's gotten a couple mentions in spring ball, some of these press conferences, as being a guy who's really taking a big step forward in the spring sessions. So this is kind of where the guard positions. We know who the starters are probably going to be, but it gets a little bit more murky when it comes to the backup. So I put Nathan Afobe in there. I feel like I've heard his name enough to feel like he's probably really vying for that backup role here, like he's really moving people. Center, at the moment, I have Greg Crippen, and then I have Raheem Anderson behind him. That feels like that can be interchangeable. As a couple, like a year and a half ago, it seemed like Raheem Anderson over Greg Crippen. Then they bring in Olu Oluwatimi, and then this past year you have Raheem Anderson on the scout team, Greg Crippen being your backup. So that feels like it could be interchangeable, but I have Greg Crippen as the starter, Raheem Anderson currently as the backup. That is an estimated guess. Right guard, since he is not the starter on the left side, with Josh Preeb getting most of the reps there, then that means we have to move Giovanni El Hadi over to the right side to be the starting right guard. He's a guy who 100% would have been starting had Trevor Keegan and Zach Sinter if they weren't on the team last year. If they didn't come back for another year, which they both did, then I feel like Giovanni El Hadi would have been an obvious starter. He was excellent when he was called upon when Trevor Keegan was injured multiple times. And he is only going to be more beastly moving up. And this is where, again, the backup situation is a little bit more murky when it comes to the guard position. This is not a name that I've honestly heard, but I'm still like just kind of looking over who are the candidates to be there. I went with Amir Herring, the former West Bloomfield 4-star, just because, he is a giant body. It feels like he'd play more inside than out. Certainly there's other guys that can move around. They have cross-trained a lot of people. I mean, it would not surprise if you had a guy that you'd think is being a tackle that they would have as the second right guard here or left guard, however you want to look at it. But Amir Herring is certainly, he's a guy that I had heard about over the course of the last year, but not a guy that I've heard about in the spring sessions, really. So that's a little bit of an estimated guess, just kind of looking at the roster and who's there. But that is who I have as the next guy up. Finishing us out is right tackle. Andrew Gentry is the obvious choice there. I'm amazed we didn't see more of him. And again, it's just because you had a starting, 6 really last year, 7. But Jim Harbaugh last year was talking about how he has to see the field. He's that good. Keeping in mind, he is an older guy and he's just now kind of getting back into football shape after going on his 2-year mission. So he, I think, is poised to be an outside guy, even though he very well could be. He has all the tangibles to be an inside guy as well. So then the question then after that is who would be the backup. I'm going with Tristan Bounds. He's like 6'8". This is his 3rd year in the program, 4th year in the program. Tristan Bounds is the guy that I think absolutely has talent. It's just he's been kind of super far behind a lot of guys. Is he developing as fast as you hope? I'm not really sure, but he would be the one that I would have there. So that is the offensive line. Let's get to all the other positions, and then we'll finish out with quarterback, and we're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, listen, it's almost summer. It's barely spring, but it's almost summer, and there are lots of things that you're going to want to be going out and doing. Lots of concerts, lots of theater, lots of comedy shows, baseball games, all that stuff. You can get your best seats at the best price using Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the event, to the first pitch. So with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Whether it's last-minute deals where you can save 60% off of buying on the last minute for sports, comedy, theater, and more. Flash deals where they go ahead and they pick this, or that's zone deals where they pick the section. You pick this. You pick how much you want to spend, and they pick the seats for you. They just have those flash deals that are exclusive in-app deals. Seat views is my favorite part, and it's all in pricing. You can take the guesswork out of knowing exactly how much you're actually going to be paying once everything is said and done. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's continue on. Train in the background, probably. Maybe. I don't know if you can hear that or not. I don't know what the microphone picks up or what it doesn't pick up. I'm surprised Zuri's not barking. Again, bear with me. In a pretty significant amount of pain at the moment, but wanted to make sure that we didn't go too long without shows, and I'm going to hope to do another one tomorrow. regardless, and we'll cover the defense here as well. And how did you hurt yourself, you may ask? Well, it was as simple as carrying a not heavy but oversized box of groceries into the house from Costco. Apparently that was enough to do it. How did I hurt how have I hurt my back is always a fun question. I once bent over to pick up something. It's usually never doing anything strenuous. It's usually doing something that's bulky, picking up, moving something that's bulky or doing something completely innocuous. And unfortunately, it's been a tough week. So apologies for being kind of lackluster, but we're going to power through. So let's talk about the other positions here. Let's go to tight end. That obviously, who the starter is there. And it's, even though he's entered the transfer portal, it's Josh Beetham. I know I scared you there for a second. It is not. He's entered the transfer portal. It's Colston Loveland. He's your obvious starter there. He might be the best tight end in the country. So then the question is who is his backup? I played around a little bit and I didn't put the obvious choice there, and because I put him at a different position. So we will discuss the backup, the actual kind of backup there. But when it comes to like traditional tight end, it will be Marlon Klein, I would imagine. You're going to still see probably some 3 tight end sets. You'll see 2 tight end sets. You'll see different formations and things of that nature. But Marlon Klein has been a guy who's gotten a lot of publicity since the end of last season. Colston Loveland says that he's the fastest straight line runner on the team. He's not the team, but in the room. That there's a lot of guys who, or that he's just faster than a lot of guys. He's got sure hands. There's a lot to really like about Marlon Klein. So I think that is that. I don't have to really talk to you about Colston Loveland. We all know all about him. So then the other name who is involved in that room that I have as a starter is Max Bredesen at fullback. That's going to probably be more of his traditional role, but maybe they do move him out to tight end more, but he is in that room. Again, you might see Marlon Klein, Colston Loveland, and then Max Bredesen on some, when obviously they go heavy set, which they will still almost certainly do, but he absolutely can also play the tight end role. We did ask him. I don't know if it was me that asked him, honestly. A little bit blurry about when we saw him on Monday, but we asked him who is your backup, and he said Jalen Hoffman, the former walk-on, or not former. He is a walk-on. So that is absolutely who is the backup. That is 100% the starter and backup at that position. Running back. This one is obvious as well. It goes without saying the starter. At least at this point, granted, it can change at any time. Donovan Edwards is the starter. Your backup is Kalel Mullings. But much like in a kind of a way in 2021, Blake Corum was really the starter and Hassan Haskins was the backup. You ended up seeing a kind of reversal once Blake got banged up. You started seeing a heavier dose of Haskins, full dose of Haskins, and then still it was a heavier dose of Haskins than Corum. But I think it just kind of depends on the in between the tackles of it all. I mean, in a way, they are co-starters, and then you just got. I think the bigger question is who's number 3, and that's where you start to get into the mix of guys. Cole Cabana is banged up, but then you've got Benjamin Hall. Tavier Dunlap got some high praise from Tony Alford on Wednesday. You've got the freshman Jordan Marshall, who is not in town yet. All of that. That's, by the way, a caveat. These are all the people who are in town, right? So when we get to the receivers here in 2 seconds, know that I'm not going to slate Channing Goodwin or Marion Stewart in this because they're not in town. Receiver is still a scary position. I end up just doing outside receiver 1 and then wide receiver 2. That's how I ended up doing it. Whereas normally I think you would look at outside receiver 1, outside receiver 2, inside receiver. The reason I didn't do that is because outside receiver 2 is also like slot receiver 2 or slot receiver 1, all kind of depending on what you're looking at. But the primary outside receiver I would imagine is going to be Frederick Moore. He's been mentioned as the deep ball threat. He's not the tallest guy necessarily. That's Peyton O'Leary, who I have as his backup. But he drew comparisons yesterday, because I at least got the audio from yesterday's press conference from Samaj Morgan to Jerry Jeudy, which is pretty high praise. If he resembles that at all, then that's really good news. So we'll see if that's the case. But Frederick Moore, I think, ends up being wide receiver 1 for you this year, at least in terms of being just like Roman Wilson was not wide receiver 1, but he was your most prolific wide receiver this year. Cornelius Johnson was still wide receiver 1, right? I think that's kind of the role you'll see with Frederick Moore, is being the guy that they're going to look to beyond the chains, where that might not be necessarily the case with the other guys. So then you get to the other receiver, wide receiver 2, which is outside inside. I mean, I have it as Tyler Morris 1 and Samaj Morgan 2, but I mean, you're going to see all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time. You'll see Frederick Moore, Samaj Morgan, and Tyler Morris. It just kind of all depends on where where they want to move that second receiver. Samaj talked yesterday about his ability to catch the ball. Like he said, he's got speed. I mean, we've seen it. He might be 5'10", but we've seen him, in that Rutgers game, blow past a guy and get the ball in the end zone. So, he's not necessarily a catch underneath and then go guy, but that is generally how they used him last year. And then Tyler Morris obviously has been in that Ronnie Bell role, wears the same number, but was not nearly as prolific as Ronnie Bell. So we're still kind of waiting to see how that goes. But the problem is that's kind of it at the wide receiver position right now, right? Like, not kind of, it just is. That's just it. And that is a problem because that's just very thin. You're relying on three primary guys. Welcome, Zuri, to the show. We're relying on three primary guys and then a walk-on. Now, granted, Peyton O'Leary's been, he's gotten the Cooper Kupp comparisons and stuff like that. We still just need to see it. And they just do not have a lot of depth. You really hope that they hit the transfer portal hard and bring in not just one, but a couple wide receivers, because it just does not feel like a very complete room at the moment. And it's the only position outside of quarterback that feels a little murky, I feel, on the entire roster. So let's talk about the quarterback. Let's do that here in just a moment. Before we do, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. Your eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and also to level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Michigan football quarterback. What to do with that position at the moment? And I'm not as confident as I was earlier, just based off of reports I saw and a conversation that I had. And that is, right now, if game started tomorrow, Saturday rolls around, I think Alex Orji would be your starter at the moment. However, I am concerned about his ability to make the routine play. That seems to be evading him to some degree. So that is still something of an issue. Now, he still makes the wow plays, but sometimes the routine plays escape him. And that does not bode well, because you need, I think we talked about this earlier in the week. You just, when you had JJ McCarthy, you just kind of knew that the easy plays were going to be made. And not every quarterback can necessarily do that, especially under pressure. Whether it's the internal pressure of being the starting quarterback for Michigan or literal pressure coming at you. So that is, I think, something of an issue. And I would not be surprised if they seek elsewhere. Now, backup at the moment I have is Davis Warren. He was the backup 2 years ago. And we've heard good things about him so far in spring ball. After all the kind of offseason talk of Jaden Denegal, it doesn't seem like he's there yet. Jaden Davis has all the talent in the world, but he's still, they do not want to make their freshman their starter when they've got experienced guys. And it doesn't sound like he's, blowing people away enough, right? Because college game's just faster. There's a lot more to it. So it doesn't seem like he is there as of yet. Now, the wild card here is Jack Tuttle, 7th year. He's been banged up, hasn't been a part of this. At worst, he's in the 2 deep if he is healthy, but right now he is not. So that kind of, negates the point. But can he be a Cade McNamara? Because that's, like we said last week, that's all Michigan necessarily kind of needs. Now they need some receivers too, I do think. But with everything else kind of in play, they need a Cade McNamara. They need a field general. It doesn't have to be like the flashiest quarterback, and it can't be Cade McNamara in week 1 of 2022 either. It's got to at least be 2021 Cade McNamara, a guy who can make the throws, move the chains, and be relatively consistent. Jack Tuttle, I think, can be that guy, but I think he needs some help, just like anyone else. Now, I think JJ McCarthy would need a little help with the receiver room personally, and I'm not trying to knock these receivers. They just don't have a lot of them. One goes down, it's chaos, right? So I think that I would not be surprised if they go to the portal and try to bring in a ringer. But again, I know that there's a lot of warnings right now saying that the transfer portal is going to be wild this spring. Once it opens on Tuesday? That is going to be absolutely wild. But how many quarterbacks are you going to see? You can probably see some receivers, but again, who? I wouldn't be surprised to see some Ohio State receivers hit. And this is not me trying to knock Ohio State. They just are collecting receivers like they're the rest of the team, right? And you can only play so many. So at some point, you're going to see some receivers hit. And then you've got Keandre Lambert-Smith, for instance, who's entering, but does Michigan go after him? He's already kind of like the same type as some of the guys they already have. I know I reverted back to receiver, but with quarterback, it's you just wonder how many quarterbacks are going to hit the portal that haven't already. I'm sure there will be some, but are any good enough to necessarily unseat guys who have already been in the system, know what's what, and you have to be smart, and you don't want to upset the culture either. You need a culture guy, because not everyone, like I see people saying like, oh, get Cam Ward or whatever, and that just feels like that's probably not necessarily your best fit. I'm not saying anything bad about Cam Ward, but it just does not seem like it's a fit with Michigan. But maybe they can make it work. You never know. All right, we're keeping it short and sweet. So again, thank you for bearing with me. We will try to do the defensive side of this tomorrow or Sunday to try to make up for missed time, and hopefully we'll be able to do that again. Just kind of all depends on how physically I am progressing, because I was out yesterday. I was doubtful today, but we were still performing. I was doubtful on Wednesday, and we did it anyway. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.